Welcome to the Communication Diva Podcast, episode 112. Today on the podcast, Jenn focuses on burnout in the workplace. Want to know if you suffer from burnout? Consider these questions. Have you started answering the phone at work with, "Go to hell"? Have you ever woken up to discover your house is on fire, but go back to sleep because you just don't care? Do you ever think about how relaxing it would be if you were in jail right now? If you answered yes to any of these questions, you're going to want to keep listening.
Hey, this is Jenn Swanson with the Communication Diva Podcast, where we help you to get the job, to love your work, and to advance your career. Thanks so much for tuning in and for sharing this show with others. I'm thrilled that more and more listeners are tuning in and are finding us, and I really do appreciate your help in making that happen. We've actually passed our previous download record. We just passed it in January, and so I'm hoping to set a new record this month. So please continue to share with anyone you think might benefit from listening to the content on this show. About this week, I was researching hot topics in the workplace this week, and I noticed a number of really good articles from places like Forbes and Psychology Today and a number of other sites on the subject of burnout in the workplace. And I thought, there's a relevant topic given how common it seems to be. I know that there have been times when I've wondered if I've been heading in that direction at different times in my life, in different jobs and different careers. And I can imagine that you might have too. It's a little bit scary when you step back and look at all the signs and say, yeah, I can relate to all of those. And we're also in a plugged-in age. Most of us, many of us, if not most of us, are never more than mere inches away from an online world. We've got watches, we've got phones, we've got laptops, we've got devices almost on us all the time. And this is where work can track us down even on the weekends, where people can reach us almost all the time. And, it didn't used to be that way. And for some people who have the discipline or the resolve to set good, strong boundaries, this constant working and connectivity isn't an issue. But for those of us, however, who aren't so good at unplugging, burnout, overload, overwhelm, stress, depression, anxiety, these are all pretty commonplace. And literally, it's killing us. So today I want to talk about what burnout is and what some of the signs and symptoms of it are, and give you some ideas of what you can do about it, especially if you're not completely burned out. If you are, noticing things in your life and noticing some of the symptoms, then maybe you can catch it before you get to a full-on burnout where you have to have some time off. So let's talk about what burnout is. Well, first of all, it's something that creeps into your life, that develops over months and weeks and years, that silently overtakes your life and is pretty hard to recognize if you aren't aware of what's happening. This isn't something that you suddenly wake up with one morning. It's a chronic, slow-growing entity. It's a bit-by-bit kind of thing. So burnout happens when you experience chronic stress over a long, extended period of time. And burnout is characterized by physical and emotional symptoms that on their own might not seem like anything unusual. Every once in a while you do get fatigued. Every once in a while you do not really care about something that's going on. Every once in a while you want to unplug and get away from everybody. And that doesn't seem like anything unusual. But if you put all of these signs and symptoms together, then you might actually have a problem. You might actually be experiencing full-on burnout. So I've got a whole list. I think there's about 8 signs and symptoms on here that I've collected from a number of different sources, and these signs and symptoms might indicate that you're heading for or you're already experiencing workplace burnout. So we'll look at the signs and symptoms, and then after that I'm going to give you a whole bunch of ideas and ways that you can maybe alleviate some of the signs and symptoms and get yourself back on track. So you can listen to see if any of these sound familiar to you, or if you're identifying with more than just one or two of these things, because that might be a warning sign for you. All right, here we go. Number 1, utter exhaustion. You feel absolutely done. You are depleted. You are fatigued with that deep in your bones, out of gas tiredness that doesn't resolve with a night or two of good sleep. You don't know how you manage to keep going, but somehow you know you have to. Have you had that before? I know I've felt this before. So that's utter exhaustion. The second thing is you can't relax. You worry and you think about work even when you're not at work. You're preoccupied and you feel like you haven't accomplished all the things that you've wanted to accomplish or that you hope to accomplish. And you feel like you just really aren't progressing, like things are slipping, not just in your work performance, but it can also feel like things are slipping in your home life. You know, maybe you haven't kept up with the laundry. Maybe you haven't kept up with your friends. Maybe there are things that you know you should have done that are on that list that is endless, and you just can't get to all of them, and you can't relax because there's this sense of overwhelm. So that's number 2. Number 3, you aren't satisfied with anything. Your job performance, your work life, your home life, your relationships, your accomplishments, nothing seems good, and your work and your home life is suffering for it, and people are noticing. People might be asking you what's going on with you and why, are you feeling stressed? You might be getting asked some of those questions. So you're just feeling that sense of nothing is good right now, dissatisfaction. Number 4, your I care level decreases. How much you care about things decreases. So you seem apathetic. You have a whatever attitude and you're unmotivated. And when you're that apathetic and unmotivated, you can become detached, which can then lead to isolation. And, who wants to be around someone who doesn't seem to care very much? So you might be turning people off by your whatever, I don't care attitude. And that just goes hand in hand with the exhaustion. You're too tired to care. So that's number 4. Number 5, negativity abounds. So pessimism, cynicism, lack of hope, frustration, irritability. People asking you constantly if you're feeling okay, which is driving you crazy. These are all signs. And if you actually find yourself not communicating, if you actually stop bothering to really talk to other people about how you're feeling because it feels hopeless and it feels like it's a waste of time to do so, you could be already burned out. You might even feel angry a lot, maybe depressed or headed for depression. You might be dreading work before you get there, being unhappy while you're there, and then dreading having to go back to work when you leave for your weekend break, already worrying about having to come back on Monday or whatever day you start. So that's negativity, number 5, negativity in all sorts of areas. Number 6 would be sleep troubles, insomnia, constant waking or being unable to get back to sleep once you're woken up, or not even falling asleep in the first time, lying there worrying about work or the world, which of course contributes to the first symptom of utter exhaustion. It's a vicious circle. If you're utterly exhausted and then you can't sleep, and then you're more exhausted and then you can't sleep again, and then you worry about falling asleep. Sleep problems can be big, and they can be quite devastating to your health and well-being in every aspect. That's number 6. Number 7 is forgetting stuff. Are you forgetting to do things? Are you forgetting to go places or be places you said you would be? Are you unable to concentrate or to meet deadlines? Are you breaking promises because you forgot that you'd made them? Or are you missing things that you should have noticed? So these are cognitive signs that can indicate burnout? Is your brain actually just too full, too overwhelmed, too frozen to think much? And then the last one is number 8 is physical problems. You don't feel well. You don't feel like eating. You don't feel like working out. You get sick a lot. Maybe you get every cold or flu that goes by. You might have unexplained pain. You might have trouble breathing. You might have anxiety or panic attacks or pain in the stomach or pain in different places. Stress manifests itself in the weirdest ways, and they're unique to each person, the way that stress symptoms manifest. So it could be that you're developing all sorts of mysterious physical problems that actually stem from being burnt out. So that's a pretty horrible list, isn't it? None of it sounds very nice. And my question is, does any of it sound familiar to you? Maybe you can relate to one or two or a whole bunch of things mentioned. And I always think that even just being aware of what constitutes workplace burnout can help you to be more capable of watching out for it, of paying attention to yourself. You know yourself better than anyone else does. You know your body, you know the signals, you know your thinking loops and patterns that you get stuck in. You know those negative, unhelpful loops and patterns that we all have, the stories that we tell ourselves. So those things, if you're paying attention to what you're experiencing, you can take steps to counteract the burnout, or you can get help from a professional if you haven't caught it early enough. And I really do strongly suggest that if you're feeling like you've got more than just a couple of these symptoms, you might want to consider going to talk to someone professional about it to get yourself back on track. All right, so some of the things that you can do to prevent burnout or to slow down the inevitability of it if you're on the track to having it, or to work yourself through it and overcome it if you think you do have it, to take care that you don't end up with it. What are some of the things you can do? Well, there are lots of things. And I'm going to suggest another 8. 8 seems to be my number for today, but within each of these 8 headings are a number of ideas. So, and some of them are things that we're supposed to do anyway, right? That we all know we're supposed to do, like making our beds and flossing our teeth. And we're not always that consistent with those things. So some of them are, we've heard this before, and others maybe you haven't. So let's look at that. The first one is getting more sleep. And that is easier said than done for some of us. Trying to figure out ways to enhance your sleep with some bedtime routines, with good sleep habits, with no screens before bedtime, with comfortable surroundings, and with reading or relaxing before bed so that you are calm. There are a lot of articles and topics on sleep, and I thought I was going to bring you someone who's been studying some of this, but he's a little bit shy and nervous to come onto a podcast just yet. So I'll save that for a little bit later, and we'll see who we can get. We'll see if we can talk him into it a little bit later, but he's a bit shy yet. Anyhow, there's a lot of information out there on how to get a good sleep. It seems to be a hot topic also because I think there's a lot of people that are suffering from not being able to sleep well. But that's something to try and aim for, is to get more sleep. The second one is to get moving. Exercise always helps. And again, we all know we're supposed to do this. And it really, really does make a difference to your overall well-being, not just your body, but to your mind. So a good brisk walk can clear the head, and some deep breathing can clear out the cobwebs, and it's absolutely free. And it doesn't take any special equipment. You can just go outside and walk around. So get moving, do some exercise, whatever that is for you. And if you want to really try something new, go find an exercise program that you've never tried before. Go check out Zumba or a special kind of a yoga class, or do what I'm doing with the shadow boxing or the 30-minute high intensity training kickboxing workouts. There's lots of things out there that would suit you. Swimming. running, if you want to join a running clinic and learn how to run. There are all sorts of things you could do that would be a little bit social too and get you out of your comfort zone and get you moving. The third thing is to eat real food. So skip the junk and feed your struggling body and brain with nutrients that it can actually use to heal itself. We sabotage ourselves so often with the chemicals that we ingest. And I'm one to talk. I sat and ate, half a bag of chips last night. So I'm not being all high and mighty here, but really, try and make some time in your life to buy and cook real food, and try and eat healthy, nutritious choices that your body can then actually use, instead of having to get rid of the waste products from the chemical-filled, preserved, processed food that we often grab because it's fast and it's cheap. So try and move towards, even a couple of times a week, being more conscious of what you're putting into your body. Number 4, unplug. Set some connectivity boundaries. You do not need to be reachable at all times, every day, every night. Turn off the news, leave the cell phone in your glove box when you go into a meeting. Go outside and do something non-digital. Get analog, as they say. So that's try it for a while. Try going out for a walk and leaving your phone somewhere at home, or going out for dinner and just leaving it turned off in your bag, that kind of thing. You can always check it later. If there's an emergency, someone will let you know, and when you're done your dinner, you'll look. So that's number 4, unplug. I was sitting in a sushi restaurant. I was waiting for my son to come in and hang out with me for the evening. He's grown up and he's working in the movie industry, and he was taking someone home, and he was going to be a bit late. So I was hungry. So I went to a sushi restaurant, speaking of food, and was sitting there until he arrived. And I looked over at the table beside me, and there were 2 women there. I think it was a mother and a daughter, and they were sitting there with their sushi in front of them, and they were each occupied on their own with their cell phones. They weren't talking to each other. They weren't looking at each other. They were having dinner together, but apart. And I thought, that's kind of sad. That's kind of sad. They're not engaging in any kind of interaction. And they sat there for probably 45 minutes, just doing their own thing on their phone. And I thought, oh, that just seemed like a sad image to me. All right, number 5 is find your passion or rediscover it. Get a hobby. Create for yourself a rich and an interesting non-working life that involves fun. So take a class on a topic you've always wanted to know more about. Join a club or a group that does something that you would like to do. That's not an online thing, an actual physical group that you have to go to, that you have to physically go to and meet real people and try something new. Could be gardening, could be anything that you're interested in. Go out with friends and reconnect with people that you have been missing, that you haven't talked to for a long time. So find something that lights you up and that's different and that gets you out and about and with people. Number 6 is just say no. Stop taking on anything new. Delegate to other people. Avoid taking on new responsibilities or commitments if you are able to, at least for a little while. And get organized with what you already have on your plate. So you can write lists of what you need to accomplish. You can make them manageable and achievable. Set yourself some goals, some priorities, and some things that you want to get done, and then stick to your list. It's hard when interesting and fun things come along that you want to take on in the workplace, but if you're overwhelmed already, you're not going to be able to do anything well. So it's a good idea to defer, delay, delegate, do what you can to give yourself some space, give yourself a little bit of a break so that you can take a breather if you're able to and get organized and then start getting productive and accomplish again. Number 7 is do like the Scandinavians do and take relaxation seriously. And I'm not sure if I am pronouncing this right, but hygge, Hygge. Somebody who knows how to speak Danish might tell me how to pronounce it properly. But this is Hygge, is something I recently learned about, and I think it's brilliant. It is very seriously considered part of a well-balanced life in Denmark, and it involves making sure that you have more rest, more relaxation, more coziness, and more beauty in your life. And if you Google the word, again, Hygge, you will find a lot of information about this now, because it's a great concept, and I think it's more and more important in this chaotic time that we live in. So do check it out and try to add a little hygge to your life. I'm probably still not saying that right. Number 8, get help. And I'm serious about this. You don't have to be alone in this if you think you've got burnout. There are support groups for workplace burnout. There are life coaches. There are counselors, therapists, and other trained professionals who are willing to listen and advise you and help you to figure out how to get yourself back on track so that you once again have that spark of life inside you, so that you enjoy life again, so that you can feel less like you're drowning in your job and more energized and ready to get busy. So help is definitely a valuable thing to consider if you have identified with more than just a few of these points. So that's what I have for you today. And again, just being aware of how you're feeling and what you're doing can be your key to implementing some of these solutions. If you don't know whether you will be honest about your own self-assessment, because we're really good at rationalizing and we are really good at not seeing ourselves clearly and honestly, then ask a friend you trust to listen to this episode with you in mind and to offer their thoughts on how you're doing and whether or not you might be heading down that road or already at the end of that road of being burnt out. If you have any suggestions to add to this topic, please leave a comment or a voice message over at communicationdiva.com. I'm always happy to hear from you. And please do share this show with someone you care about who might benefit from it. There are share buttons on the show notes page for each episode, again, over at communicationdiva.com. This is episode 112 if you're looking for it later on. And in the next episode, as long as scheduling doesn't get messed up and as long as technology works properly, I will be interviewing Dr. Serena Reep, who is the author of an upcoming book called Work-Life Balance is Dead. And I think you will really enjoy her take on this topic. I really did. And I think that title is just so intriguing. So I'm going to bring you an interview with Dr. Reep next week, and I hope that you will tune in then as well. So until next time, this is Jenn Swanson. Thanks again for listening, and take care of you so that you can take care of the ones you love and the work that you love to do.